Well, that didn't take long. Aaron Glenn was officially hired as the head coach of the New York Jets 2 days ago, and the Lions have already replaced him. So the Lions have promoted linebackers coach Kelvin Sheppard to the defensive coordinator position. This was a move that was expected, at least if they stayed in-house, but it certainly happened sooner than anticipated. Now, obviously, there are a few questions. What will Sheppard bring to the table? Where will he differ from Aaron Glenn? And did the Lions make the right choice? But first of all, let's start with who Sheppard is. Kelvin Sheppard was originally drafted back in 2011. He was a third-round selection, 68th overall by the Buffalo Bills, and he went on to play 8 seasons in the NFL. His best season in his career was the 2015 season when he was with the Miami Dolphins, and he racked up over 100 tackles on the season. And throughout his career, his time was split between the Bills, Dolphins, the Colts, the New York Giants, and the Detroit Lions. Sheppard played 7 games for the Lions back in 2018. He only had a handful of tackles, and that wound up being the final season of his playing career. Now, fast forward to 2021, when Dan Campbell was hired as head coach of the Lions, Sheppard was brought in as the outside linebackers coach. Now, in 2021, his work as outside linebackers coach stood out because Charles Harris, who was brought in as an outside linebacker edge kind of hybrid player, had a renaissance season with 7.5 sacks, and it kind of revived his career for at least a season or two. And the work that Sheppard did in 2021 impressed Campbell so much that Sheppard was promoted to linebackers coach in 2022, a position he held until about an hour ago at the time of recording this. Now, why was Sheppard the choice for defensive coordinator over someone else in the organization? Simply put, because Sheppard has been groomed for this role. This has been the plan all along. And Aaron Glenn confirmed that Sheppard was being groomed for that role. At a press conference in December, he said, "That's a guy that I've actually been mentoring to be in the DC role at some point. I think he's damn near close, if not there, to be ready to do that. He's a damn good coach." And then there's also this written by Colton Pouncey of The Athletic back in 2022. The next step in Sheppard's coaching journey, he says, is game planning. Sheppard was a high IQ player, but wants to round out his coaching skills. This involves scouting an opposing offense's strengths and weaknesses, devising a plan of attack, and putting the personnel at his disposal in a position to win their individual matchups on Sundays. Depending on the staff, a coordinator could easily tell an assistant coach to stay in his lane, to worry about his own position group. But in Detroit, Sheppard receives hands-on instruction from Glenn, a respected coordinator who wants to see the assistants working under him get the same opportunities he's been afforded. He believes Sheppard can be a defensive coordinator one day. His mindset, come grow. So it's clear that Sheppard was the preferred in-house candidate just based on how many resources the Lions have allocated towards his development, but why was he preferred instead of an external candidate for the defensive coordinator role? That can be tied to something that Dan Campbell said, which is that they basically want to just maintain continuity with their defensive scheme. The Lions have invested a lot of resources into defensive backs that can play a lot of man coverage, linebackers that are intelligent enough to understand all aspects of the defense, and defensive linemen that can generate pressure. The Lions want to stop the run, play man coverage, and get pressure on the quarterback, which obviously a lot of teams want to stop the run and get pressure on the quarterback, but these are the Lions' core principles. They stop the run so that you have to pass it, and then they play man coverage, and they pin their ears back and they rush. So Sheppard being mentored by Glenn over the past few seasons, it makes sense that some of those core principles are instilled in him as well. Now, where will Sheppard differ from Glenn? That's one we don't know, and that's not a question we'll have answered until next season. And we have no idea what his tendencies will be. We have no idea how often he will blitz. We don't know what his splits in man and zone are going to be. We just don't know. Now, was he the right choice? Given what the Lions were looking for, absolutely he was. Again, the Lions outlined they wanted to maintain continuity. Sheppard's been developed over the past few years to be a candidate for this role, so it makes sense. The only question is just whether or not this style of defense is the right approach, but I mean, that's not Sheppard's fault if it doesn't work out. That's just a philosophy problem from the top. It is worth noting that Aaron Glenn did have his peaks and valleys as defensive coordinator in Detroit, and some of those valleys included weeks where the defense would outright look like one of the worst in the league. That includes the various Seattle games over the years where Geno Smith would look like an MVP candidate every time he played Detroit. If you want more recent examples, the Bills game from week 15, or even the divisional round just a week ago. So hopefully Sheppard can avoid that tendency, but overall, he's been a very good coaching prospect for the last few years. The Lions have invested resources, and he was starting to generate buzz as a defensive coordinator candidate around the league, and if Detroit didn't hire him, someone else was probably going to. So this is just the logical next step in his evolution as a coach, and it makes sense that he stays in Detroit. Also, real quick, just before I was about to export this video, we also got another update that the Lions are set to name Sean Dion Hamilton as their new linebackers coach, so he will step in to replace Sheppard's role. From Matt Zenitz on Twitter, the 29-year-old, considered a rising star in the coaching world, has been Detroit's assistant linebackers coach for the last 2 seasons, so he gets a promotion as well. And overall, this just kind of speaks to the Lions' philosophy of wanting to stay in-house with these hires. They have a development system in place for these coaches, so when coordinators leave, someone else will fill their shoes that's already here. So that's going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know down below in the comments what you think of the Sheppard hire, whether you agree or if you wanted to see an external candidate brought in and who that might have been. But click like on this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you loved it, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Cheers.